Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to begin first with the satellite animation here, and this is a true color image. So we're going to start off with visible satellite imagery here, and then the sun sets, and now we're over into infrared, and then you'll see the sunrise here. What I want to point out in this animation is a few important pieces that are moving here that are going to affect the western United States. First of all, if I just pause it here and step you back through, what we don't see is off the coast any very large low pressure systems. In fact, what we're seeing, if you just notice the flow up here in this part of the Gulf of Alaska, that tends to be where we see our next deeper trough kind of gathering. Now, as the sun set last night, you can see the switch over here. Here's the terminator going over from day to night, showing us where we're switching over to infrared. And as the morning came up here this morning, this was just as we got, I'll show it to you again, just as the sun rose, we could see quite a bit of smoke that's down here over parts of Southern California, getting to Arizona, Nevada, really into the Four Corners states here. It's also kind of neat to see here early in the morning all the fog that settles into the valleys that are right here along the coast, a very typical thing to be able to see. Now, while we're thinking about that smoke, I would like to show you at least the forecast for the next 48 hours of where we're expecting that smoke to go. So we can see the fires down in Southern California producing quite a bit of smoke spreading across the Four Corners states. And then again later today, we're going to continue with that firefight. There's not only some large fires that are down here in California, but also in Northern California as well. Now, from here, I want to deviate from what I normally do. So if you will, let's just go, I want to go straight to the web, and I want to show you a pretty cool tool that I like to use here. So if you just go to Google and you type in NASA Worldview, okay, NASA Worldview, and hit enter, what you end up getting here is this top link, EOSDIS Worldview. I want you to click on that, and it's going to take you to something that looks like this. Now, first thing I would like for you to do is just go ahead and click the X in the Welcome to Worldview box. And then, because as of early this morning, the high-resolution satellites had only just cleared Africa, let's just go back one day. So I came down here to the bottom, and I click back to August 3rd. Now you can see all of our high-resolution satellite imagery from yesterday. Now what we're going to do next is a little different. I'd like to add a layer and show you something a little different. So do you see the red box over here that says Add Layers? Click on it. That's going to bring up this new window, and you can, I encourage you to play around with this and look at all these different things here. What I want you to do is come up to the search box and type in NDVI, Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. And then it'll bring up a bunch of options which are right here in the middle. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to click on the top one, the rolling 8-day NDVI from MODIS. So this is the one we're going to click on. And now you can go ahead and close this box. So what is shown to you now is MODIS NDVI data, with the background here over the ocean is just going to show us cloud cover. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a comparison though. Now, you are free to just zoom in here. I'm just zooming in. You could either use the plus minus, or I'm just using the trackpad to kind of zoom in. And I just went right here. This is the Columbia Basin. So I can zoom in pretty closely and see how things compare to normal. And what you're going to do is you're going to use the color bar that's right here. And remember, NDVI that's close to 1 suggests very, very good plant health. NDVI values that are below about 0.3, 0.4, that area, then we're talking about vegetation that's very, very stressed. Okay, so when we're looking at this particular image, what we're going to do next is we're going to do something called Start Comparison. So when I click on that button, you're going to see two tabs open up. There's one called A and one called B. Now A is showing us the current date. I want to now click on tab B, and I'm just going to set the date to be, well, see down here at the bottom, let's not go 2020, let's go 2018. And I want to do a direct comparison, so I'm going to go to August by clicking up, and we're going to go to August 3rd. So I'm just going to click up on this one until it comes around to August 3rd. There we go. So now you can see at the top, I'm going to compare 2020 August 3rd to 2018 August 3rd. A is going to be 2020, B is going to be 2018. So what you can see is A will be on the left side of the slider and B will be on the right side of the slider. Now, I know a lot of us that watch this maybe struggle a little bit with seeing the difference between shades of green or even shades of red and green. So check this out. You can go right up here to this little icon. See it? I just pointed to it right there and click on this. And what it'll allow you to do is to choose different color bars. Now, I like color bars that are divergent, so I'm scrolling down to the bottom here, and I'm going to click on the one called Divergent 1, which goes red to blue. So if any of you have like a red-green color blindness, this is a good one to use. So I changed it for panel B. Let's go over to panel A, click on that same icon, and then scroll down and choose that same value. So divergent 1. Now, when I do this, and I'm just going to close the little box here, maybe I get a little bit better color separation that'll help me see some of the differences. They're subtle when I'm comparing 2018 to 2020, but you can zoom in and out and go all over the West Coast. If you'd like to come right down here to the Central Valley of California, let's let it kind of get acclimated there, the high resolution. Going back and forth, you can really see the differences. In fact, let's zoom in right here and see what some of those differences are. You have the options of turning on features that will show you cities and boundaries, like state boundaries and stuff. But I wanted you to be aware of this tool because I find it a very vital tool in order to assess the quality of the crop from space. And why it looks good out west is because we tend to have a lot of clear days, which gives us really good NDVI retrievals. But you can tell the difference. 2020 in this particular section of California is looking much better than it did in 2018. You can see some holes in there where we've got these blue colors indicating low NDVI values. So a little bit of a deviation from our normal here, but I thought it would be a tool that you all might find useful. So what I'd like to do is let's just go back to our presentation here and let's talk now about this upcoming forecast, okay? So we've taken a look here at where we're expecting smoke to be spreading across the south and or the southwestern United States due to some of the large fires that are in Southern California. But as we move forward in this forecast, let's go straight to the precipitation patterns we've seen now since the 1st of July. So it has been very, very dry in parts of Arizona, Southern California, and Nevada. We've noticed that most of our southwestern monsoon track has come through the state of New Mexico and not hit Arizona. In fact, this section right in through here in and around Phoenix has had their driest such time period in the last 128 years. So very, very dry. Now, over the next 7 days, we are not expecting much in terms of monsoonal action. You can see if there is storms, it's going to be farther to the east and around much of the western United States, other than your daily storms that pop up on the mountains here that curl around the northern part of California and then the Sierra Nevada. And then in parts of the Intermountain West here, getting over toward Idaho and the Northern Rockies, we're going to see some storms. But outside of that, we continue on with our normal dry pattern this time of year. So let's talk about this upper level pattern by beginning first with a map looking down at the North Pole here at upper level heights, so troughs and ridges. Now there's a few things I really want you to be seeing here. We're going to be watching multiple troughs coming out of Alaska, and I also want you to keep your eye right here. This is a typhoon, Hagaput is its name, and I want you to see how the remnants of this end up interacting with the troughing that's happening over the Gulf of Alaska and ultimately keep pulling troughs into the Pacific Northwest. And this has been a model failure point throughout much of the summer. Yeah, we got some really high heat last week in the Northwest, triple-digit heat, but to be honest with you, it was relatively short-lived. We saw it for 4 or 5 days, and then things cooled back off again. Well, let's see how this pattern evolves here, and let's just start this playing forward. Now, as I move forward in the forecast, you can see I'm stepping back and forth here. This feature is going to wash out pretty quickly. See it over here? But you're going to see this deep trough develop and the one behind it develop. So as I play this forward, we continue to see a lot of troughing in this section of our globe. Now what that's doing, because there's quite a bit of momentum in the North Pacific, is it keeps sending these troughs into the western and northwestern part of the United States. But keep your eye right there. That is what's left over in the upper levels of the atmosphere of Hagaput, that tropical cyclone that hit this part of China. And as we go forward with this, what I see is the remnants of that, as it gets over here toward the Bering Sea, toward this part of Russia, ends up reinforcing, see it right there coming in, ends up reinforcing the troughing that's happening in this area. So we have one trough that sweeps through toward the end of the week into the northwest. And then as we play this forward, watch this one right here. That is the remnants of that tropical system. It comes back through and sets up right here over the Aleutian Islands. Now what do we get? Trough, ridge, another trough. And we keep producing these troughs that sweep through the northwest, preventing any sort of long duration heat. And the ridging sets up over the southwest, really over the Four Corner states. And as we go all the way out here into day 10 and beyond, that seems to be the way the atmosphere wants to stay. Now that's interesting because this is something what we've, like I said, has been a major model failure in that the models keep suggesting more heat builds into the west, yet it just isn't happening in the near-term model forecast. And you're going to see that again in just a few moments here. So good news is this pattern is not one where we get blocked up. There's no big high here with low over California. It's just a wide open broad trough with the ridge down here between Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma. So the jet stream sweeps through and then runs over into eastern parts of Canada. Okay, and what does all that mean? We're getting out into week 2. We can see where the drier conditions will be. That pattern shuts down the southwestern monsoon, but it really has no bearing overall on making us drier than normal or wetter than normal for much of the western United States. I would actually expect this to give us maybe a more stormy pattern at times in the Pacific Northwest, especially as you get over into parts of Idaho and Montana, and also up here in parts of the Canadian prairies backing up against the Rocky Mountains there in Alberta. So something to consider. Now watch what this does in terms of winds. Now this is interesting. We always have to watch our winds this time of year, certainly because of how dry things have been, which they normally are, and how they could possibly be influencing fire threat. So we see that throughout today, the high wind threat is going to be in the Snake River Valley and then also down here in Southern California. But these are not Santa Ana winds down here in Southern California going over the top of the mountains. These winds are actually blowing to the east. Okay, so if we play this forward, this is basically how winds are going to accumulate. So this is an accumulated wind gust map, so it just keeps adding to itself. And what we get here is as we look at those maximum winds, over the next several days, we could see some strong winds in the Columbia Basin. Notice we've got 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts at times there. Not too much more than what we saw at the early or middle of this week right here in the Snake River Valley. But then notice off the coast here of California, very strong winds developing toward the end of this weekend. And that seems to be what we're watching most carefully in terms of our stronger wind threat throughout the next several days. Now let's talk temperatures and we'll wrap up this forecast video. We see that today high temperatures, we got a lot of mid-90s in the Central Valley of California, and we're much closer to average up here in parts of the Pacific Northwest. It's another scorcher down here in the desert with Phoenix hitting 112. As we play forward, look at this. By Wednesday, look at the cooler weather coming into the Central Valley of California. We may have high temperatures staying below 90 degrees for a lot of folks there in that section of California. And it spreads here. Look at this. This is Thursday. Now it's occupying the whole of the West Coast with cooler than average weather settling in by Thursday and lasting in through the day on Friday. As we then get ourselves into the weekend, Saturday backs up back toward normal temperatures, mid to upper 90s through the Central Valley. We're still a little bit cooler than average in the Pacific Northwest. As we go into Sunday and Monday, we rebound in temperatures here, but this doesn't go back over to extremes in the Central Valley of California. Just a lot of, mid to upper 90s, which is, I think, typical of this time of year. Longer term, this is the 6 to 10 day outlook. Because of that trough that comes in, look at the Pacific Northwest in both models cooling off. A little bit warmer to the south, and you can see the extent of the ridge that's setting up, stretching from Arizona, New Mexico up into parts of the Great Lakes states. And it just tends to stay that way. The GFS much deeper with the trough in the west than the European is, which is over there on the right. And we can see the differences there. But overall, still a cooler pattern for the Pacific Northwest. What a massive model failure. So thinking about that, okay, now I want to show you the latest long range. So I have to call into question this, and I've done that multiple times this summer. End of August, see it? They continue to bring in the warmer conditions, the models do, into the western United States. And I look at that and I go, well, we just haven't been able to bring in these much above average temperatures, sustained above average temperatures for a while. And it's not just the European that's doing this. The CFSV2 just released this morning. This is the 18th through the 24th. This is the 25th through the 31st. You can see the much above average temperatures it's trying to bring in there in week 3 of August. And then it backs it off and sends it farther south into week 4 of August. So at this point, it is so difficult to tell if these models actually have a handle on this pattern or if they don't, given that we've seen them routinely call for high heat, and all we've ever gotten here was a brief shot of it, nothing ever sustained. So we're going to have to continue to watch this. I'm going to update again tomorrow, my long-range update, but I hope you found this video useful, especially the new website I want you to check out when you get a little bit of time. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I appreciate your attention. We'll talk to you again tomorrow with the long range. Thanks.